Welcome back to Head to Head. Today, we're going to take it to the APAC region where we've been staying up late at night watching games, or Bren just kind of tripping, just talking about random shit while the games are on, and Josh actually casting them. But the team that we want to talk about today is the Shanghai Dragons. Started from the bottom, now here. Yeah. Now they here. Only taken 2 years, but it's all right.
Yeah,
everybody takes time.
I mean, they did win stage 3 last year, to be fair. So they were the best team in the world at that point.
True. Yep, for a weekend. Yeah, they were the best team. Do you believe that they are the best team in the league right now, not just in their region, in the league?
Yes, I do. I think that the Shanghai Dragons, when you watch them play, they are so clean. When they play high tempo. They play every composition really well as well. They've played the dive. They've played double shield. They've played rush comps. Their double shield attacks and defenses on King's Row are insanely good. And then they also just pull out in the finals a dive attack and defense of King's Row, as if that's no problem for them. They are just a well-oiled machine with unbelievably talented players. They're clearly the best team. I think they are clearly the best team.
We have not seen them play the Shock, and that is, not the fault of anybody, right?
True.
But I cannot put them over the Shock until I see it happen. Like with the way the Shock they've consistently they won last year. They come into this year. It started off shaky at the beginning, but now they've started to really kind of hit their strides. They win NA relatively cleanly. The Florida did give them Florida gave them a fight, but if you're going to kind of hold the Florida game against them, we can definitely hold the Seoul Dynasty game against the Shanghai Dragons.
Yeah.
Where I believe the Shock have the experience and the big game kind of mentality to beat a team like Shanghai Dragons at the highest level. I still believe the Shock are the best team in the league until I see them lose a huge game to a powerhouse, which they very well could to Shanghai. I think the worst you can say about the Shanghai Dragons are they are the second best team, or they are tied for first in the league. I don't think you can put them lower than that. If you're putting them lower than that, you just aren't really watching the league, or you're just some ridiculous fanboy of some team out there. But like they are. Until I see them beat the Shock, I just can't do it. I have to say that the Shock are the best team in the world still right now.
When I look at the Shock play, I see way more holes in their game than I do for the Shanghai Dragons. I mean, you can start by saying that when the Shock were playing in week 8 and they lost to the Gladiators and the Valiant, they looked pretty lost in that week.
Yeah.
And I would also say that they've had easier competition as well. I don't think there's really much argument that
we had a week
region is stacked.
Shanghai... they got taken to 5 by New York. They lost to Seoul. Like they've had some weird games. It hasn't exactly been smooth sailing for the Dragons either.
It kind of has, though. I mean, the Dragons have only lost 2. I mean, what even are they? Are they like 11-2?
They are 14-2.
14-2, Matt. And you're saying it's not smooth sailing?
What are the Shock? What is the Shock record?
I don't even know. I mean, what is the Shock record?
11-2.
Yeah,
they played 3 less games.
They've played 3 less games, but
throw 3 more games on there. One against Boston, one against Vancouver, and then pick.
But that's the point. They can play against the Boston and Vancouver Titans now. I mean, they haven't played against them yet so far this season, but the teams that they've been playing against are lower, right? Like they lost to the Gladiators and the Valiant. The Seoul Dynasty, when the Seoul Dynasty were not that great, right? Before they had figured shit out, they rolled the Valiant and the Gladiators. And the Shanghai Dragons are rolling them most of the time.
A little bit of a different direction, but like Chengdu hasn't exactly been incredible this year. London's been mediocre at best.
Yeah, London hasn't been that great.
Hangzhou hasn't lived up to the hype of last year, although I do want to caveat Hangzhou will get better with the addition of Architect. That will be a very, very strong team.
Are you really trying to argue, Matt, that the APAC region is not better than the North American region?
New York most of their wins while playing in North America. They've looked average
because they
since
spend
going
most
to
of their
APAC.
time. No, come on. I mean, New York.
And Seoul's looked up and
The
down.
reason that New York have looked average since going to APAC is because they are average in APAC, because APAC's a lot better. They
could have been average in NA as well. We just hadn't seen them play against anybody but Boston and Washington.
Come on, Matthew. New York.
I'm using your own New York argument against you, and you don't like it.
Yeah, that's true. But New York did manage actually to get wins against a lot of the bottom feeding teams in North America. And the point is that there are a bunch of bottom feeding teams in North America. The teams like the Shock has played how many times against the Valiant? 1, 2, 3, 4 times against the Valiant. And they lost one of those times against the Valiant.
You said the Valiant were good.
Yeah, the Valiant are a top 10 team in the league, maybe, just on the outside. But they're not better than any APAC team outside of London.
Chengdu?
Maybe Chengdu. I think the Valiant against Chengdu would be tight as well.
Do you think they could beat Hangzhou?
Yeah. I mean, I think Hangzhou have played some god-awful compositions recently, but
you don't think the Valiant could give Guangzhou a game?
No, Matthew, I don't. I think the Guangzhou
I forgot. That's your transfer from the Mayhem to Guangzhou is still being processed by League Ops. I forgot.
Yeah, the ink is wet on the paper. I think that the APAC region is a very strong region. I think that Guangzhou, New York, the Seoul Dynasty, when they play well, these are nasty teams to play against. And Shanghai's been bodying them. I mean, the amount of 3-0s they've been getting in that region are ridiculous.
Do you think that Dragons would walk over the Shock?
No, I don't think so. I don't think anyone walks over the Shock. I simply don't think it happens. And also the fact that the Shock dealt with the Florida Mayhem pretty handily. Like you said, they fought to beat them. And okay, they drop a couple of maps here and there, and they look a bit challenged, but the deeper the map pool gets, the more the Shock are favored. But my issue is that the Shock look really strong when they're playing certain comps.
Yeah.
Like the Lucio Reinhardt stuff. They look incredible. That's like Shock at their absolute peak. When they play Double Shield, they sometimes look pretty good. When they play Dive, it's a bit more all over the place.
You give me one game, and if the Shock were in a position like the Seoul Dynasty were in against the Dragons, we are talking about a Shock 4-0 over the Dragons.
And you're assuming that
the Shock are not letting them off the hook there.
You're saying if you gift the Shock three map wins, then they can take the fourth.
They definitely could.
Sure, of course they could. Of course they could. If you give them a 3-0 advantage, they could beat the Dragons.
If Seoul can take 3 maps in a row off of the Dragons, do you not think the Shock could?
No, I don't think so. I think that the Seoul Dynasty...
So you think the Seoul Dynasty is better than the Shock?
No, I think that the Seoul Dynasty have maybe higher peaks on specific compositions than the Shock does. The Shock, to me, are a really, really strong team when it comes to playing high tempo, when it comes to relying on the Violet to be able to get picks and Ants hitting crazy shots, but they're not a perfectly well-oiled machine like the Shanghai Dragons are, or
neither
like
are the Dragons.
The Dragons are. They're amazing, Matt. When you watch them play, it's like I was going to say a Picasso painting, but Picasso paintings are all fucking all over the place.
Like a potato. I was like, huh?
No, it's wonderful. It really is like watching a work of art. They are so well coordinated. Void always on the high ground. Legia gone in great positions, even though he sometimes feeds. Their DPS players are all making plays and all really tight together. Whereas with the Shock, they look a little bit loose. They haven't shown that they can play dive. Ants is still making individualistic plays. Violet's getting picked off on the Batiste. The Shock isn't anywhere near as tight.
Eventually.
Yeah, I mean, they're not getting played right now.
Yeah, but you never know.
Okay. Here's another way of tackling this as well.
Yeah.
Pound for pound, right? Just purely pound for pound on a theoretical basis. What portion of the San Francisco Shock do you believe is better than the Shanghai Dragons roster?
The supports, without a doubt.
You think their support line is better?
Violet, Twilight, and Moth is definitely better than Izayaki, Luffy, and Li Gun.
I would say that that's only just true because Moth's an unbelievable freak and Lee Jae-gon gets caught out a little bit. But Izayaki's been having great performances as well in the Asian region. And Violet does get picked off himself.
The tanks are close.
Bro, the tanks are not close in my opinion. Fearless has been putting on a masterclass. A masterclass performance in that finals. I went back and reviewed that game and Fearless is just wonderful in that match. Wonderful.
Which is wild to talk about Fearless like pounding in an Overwatch League match. But he's been incredible.
And Void has been enormously good as well. Choyobin, when he plays the Zarya and when he plays the ball, I think we can all agree, has not been impressive. Choyobin's Sigma, his Diva, unreal, fantastic. Up there with the best in the league, maybe the best in the league. But Void on the Sigma and the Diva is pretty much the same as Choyobin, and they've also got the Zarya and whatever the hell else Void wants to play to be able to lean on as well. I think the tank line are so well coordinated.
But we've seen teams in the past have the talent and not get the wins.
But Shanghai are getting the wins. They're getting all of the wins. We haven't seen it
against the Shock.
They have been denied the opportunity to prove themselves. New York in
Season 1 was the best team from top to bottom, and they didn't end up winning it all.
True, they choked in the playoffs, and I think that if the Shanghai Dragons had choked in that final against the Seoul Dynasty, then you could make a very, very good case that Shanghai, even though they looked impressive, don't have what it takes when it comes to the big game matches.
We're talking about like a one map difference between this entire conversation. Where the Shock, they're never in that scenario. They've gone through last year. They went through. I mean, look, they lose in the first round of the playoffs last year, and they make it all the way back. They run it all the way back. They destroy the Vancouver Titans. Yeah. And I cast that game. I felt bad for the people who traveled because it was 8 minutes.
It was
the whole series.
It was absolutely rapid.
I mean, you're on the desk. There was more prep for that day than actual game time.
It was. It was ridiculous. But that isn't the Shock that we're dealing with anymore. They don't have Sinatra. They don't have Architect on the team. They're playing Ants all the time over Striker.
But it's still impressive that they're getting they still are being able to outmuscle teams and do it.
But are you telling me that there was no doubt in your mind that the Shock were going to win the May Melee? Because I thought that it was possible that Philadelphia would come out and win. A lot of people in the community thought it was possible that Philadelphia would win.
I mean, I actually thought the finals would be Shock Philly, but we all had Shock, I believe, when we did the Plat Chat predictions.
We all predicted Shock, yeah.
Going into the June tournament, is there anybody else you would pick in NA?
No, I don't think there would be, but I do think that the top level in this sounds weird when the final was a 4-3 game, but Seoul are so all over the place. You know, they're just up and down and all over. There is nobody in Asia that is close to the level when you talk about consistency. To the Shanghai Dragons. The Shanghai Dragons are the odds-on favorites to dominate the Asian region. But do you think
with a month that a team like Seoul can improve? I know Hacksaul's still out there. Maybe they make an addition.
If Seoul improves to the level of the Shanghai Dragons, and if Seoul ends up winning in the June tournament, and they just hands down beat the Shanghai Dragons, then I think we're talking about maybe Shock as the third best team in the world, Matt. I think that if the Seoul Dynasty continue to improve and they actually get better than current Shanghai, then I think they've also overtaken the Shock. Because I think
there's a better chance that there's a team that improves in Asia and can overtake Shanghai than a team improving in NA and overtaking the Shock.
You don't think that Philly have that potential?
I just think there's more teams that could hit that potential in Asia,
because it's a more competitive region.
I would never count out New York, even though they've stunk as of late. You know, a month to work on stuff. Okay, I mean, right now, look at the teams in Asia. I mean, there's some that are good and some that are kind of poor. Where Hangzhou, I don't think we really have seen the best of Hangzhou yet. No. I think with Architect, they could easily get up there and start to give Shanghai games. I just can't see that happening anywhere in NA, where I think...
Because it's a weaker region.
No, I just think the players are a little bit more spread out, where the best players in Asia are just all clumped on 3 teams, where NA, some of the better players are just spread out on teams that are just not very good.
I think that the Shanghai Dragons' ability to play every single style of Overwatch has utterly swayed me that they are the best team in the world right now. And in my opinion, the finals against the Seoul Dynasty, if they don't run stand 1 and DM in the future, that situation will not occur again. That situation only occurred.
Calling out fucking DM and Stand One.
I mean, look at it.
Here on head to head.
Look at it. Stand One has just, I mean, we came into that series thinking there wasn't that much difference between the main tanks. We exited that series knowing that there is an enormous difference between those main tanks. And DM, I think, you know, kind of got dragged into it as well, but also didn't make any sense that he was even in the lineup. So if Shanghai Dragons stick to their main lineup, bro, they're fantastic.
I want to see, this has only made me want a Shanghai San Francisco match that much more. Like, I wasn't, like, before we even came in and talked about this topic, I wasn't even thinking about like these two teams matching up eventually, but and now I want to see it, because I feel like Shock still has the title belt. Like, you can't uncrown the champs. And it's not like they were the champs last year and then they pulled the London and came into this year and they're just gimping around, just like they're not very good.
They've carried it on.
They won last year and they've carried it on, and they've carried it on through major losses in the roster as well. Where until I see them lose at a playoff type scenario to a team like the Dragons, I can't see them being not the best team in the league.
I mean, also, if the Shock start losing games again to the Gladiators and the Valiant, right? Like, if they start just losing regular season games, at that point, you got to start wiggling that crown off the head a little bit.
Oh, you know,
got to start lifting it up a bit.
Like, right now that we're in tournaments, you know, regular season, you know, who knows?
Already making excuses. Already making excuses.
A few videos ago, you used that against me. How dare you? How dare you use my ammo against me and your ammo? Like, we're just using our own arguments against each other. Let us know in the comments, who do you side with? Do you believe the Shanghai Dragons are the best team in the world at the moment, or do you want to see the Shock lose to them to inevitably give that title? Because I believe that until we see that happen, the Shock are the best team. Let us know in the comments what you think. Stay tuned for more head-to-head coming up soon.